So for this lesson, I want you to think about, have you ever read an informational text before? What are these books about? How are they organized? In this lesson, I'm going to generate an idea that I am an expert at. So to do this, you'd want to make a list. So I would sit here and say, okay, I am an expert at ... And I sit here and think of things I'm an expert at. Well, I know a lot about sports. I know a lot about technology. All right. So then I sit there and I think, wait, well, those are two pretty broad topics. Okay, let me maybe break them down. Okay, so sports. I like football. I like baseball. Technology, I guess, I like iPads, computers. I like teaching with it. So what you can see here is as I'm making this list, I'm kind of starting with like two broader topics, and then I realized, wait a minute, like then I need to make these smaller topics more specific. So sports comes down and is looking like sports could be football or baseball, and I could even break those down further. I could say, well, football, I could specifically talk about my favorite team, the Jaguars. I know a lot about them. I could even get into like their history. Could probably tell a lot about their history. Baseball, I could talk about my favorite team, the Mets, or I could even like explain like the rules. I could do the rules of football. So now I'm looking at very specific things within that. iPads, I could talk about, like uses. And when I think about uses, I really know a lot more about this with the teaching and technology. So like maybe I could talk about like making videos like I'm doing right now. How do you make videos? Oops, let me spell that correctly. Here we go. So I can talk about making videos. So you can see you want to narrow your topics down into things that are as specific as possible to being an expert at. So what I want you to do is start thinking about some things you're an expert at. What could you write a book about? Be as specific as possible, and then break them down into smaller topics. I could even go into further topics. You could go as far as saying history. Oh, maybe I just talk about 1 year. Like I could talk about 1999, the 1999 Jaguars. I could talk about them for a long time and really go to the history of just that team. And rules. Maybe I just focus on like penalties. Or maybe I focus on like instant replay. I could even combine football and baseball and look at instant replay in both sports because they have that. So we could write things that I might consider myself an expert at. So what I want you to do is really start thinking about that list. What is that list? What are you an expert at that you could write a book on?